Welcome into the shop and welcome to another Adventures in Vintage Audio, the vintage audio listening experience. And I'm listening to a cool little country tune called Country Boy, just getting my final licks in on the Marantz model 2015 that you guys were here for the restoration for. And it wasn't the most complicated project that we ever did, but it's a project that had to be done right because, well, quite frankly, in the world of vintage audio, the Marantzes are always quite valuable and they hold their value, and more than that, many of them seem to increase in value as time goes by. Well, it's a combination of build quality, beauty, of course, with the signature blue, beautiful blue dial face, and just the performance that these things have. This is the model 2015, what I've called the baby Marantz, the low-ender Marantz. And of course, Marantz was known for all this fancy high-end gear, the concertina and some other ones that were developed. They were all rather expensive units, and it remained for Saul Marantz to finally figure out, with competition growing, we need to broaden the line. Why can't we build a unit that captures the best of Marantz without going crazy on features and quadraphonics, nothing? Let's just make a great unit that more people will be able to afford. Well, the problem with that is when they built the model 2015, the low end, the baby Marantz, they did such a wonderful job of making that unit that a lot of people never stepped up to anything else in the 2000 series that dominated the 70s and 80s. They got the entry-level Marantz and they stayed at the entry-level Marantz. Reason being, the bass on this thing for the size of the unit is tremendous. The treble sounds are great. The frequency response in the system is outstanding. Why is frequency response important? The human ear captures a certain audio frequency range, and the more of that you can capture, the better. Well, what Marantz did was try to have the broadest frequency response that they could while still maintaining an affordable price. What this means to you as the listener, and what it's meant to probably 2 generations of audiophiles is now, music that's not left on the studio floor or music that conveys through the stereo system. And this is the important thing. Even though this unit is small, the Marantz 2015, it's still able to power 2 sets of speakers. 1 remote set of speaker and 1 main set of speakers. That's not bad, you know, it's a nice setup. And it's nice to have that flexibility of dual drive on this system. Now, as far as repairs go, well, I'll bring you down here. I'll talk about some of the repairs we did. If you haven't seen the series on restoring this Marantz 2015, it's a 2-part series, and I encourage you to do so. One of the biggest problems was we had speaker terminals that were loose and flopping out the back of the unit. Well, that's no way to run a railroad, and there's certainly no way to have a good connections for speakers. The potential for shorting is very high. Internally here, it's a big problem. But you can see the outside antenna, the AM ferrite core externally mounted. It's held up really well, and a lot of these didn't, because a lot of people didn't follow the mandate here not to use this as a handle. When they carry their units, they would pick it up, and before you knew it, they would bust off those ferrite antennas, and bye-bye AM. So we've got it. The first thing we did was we did that speaker setup. We also had some cold solder connections within the inside that we had to touch up. Also had to change out the vellum paper behind here, because over time that paper that sits behind the dial tends to turn a yellow color, and in combination with the blue on the dial face, you get, well, a rather unattractive green that comes through. And now we have this restored to the beautiful original Marantz blue. Now, a lot of people will wonder, well, Rosie, why didn't you go ahead and change out for the blue LED lights? that seem to be so popular for the Marantz units? Well, a couple reasons. Number one, I don't like the light that they give off. I feel it's too harsh and purplish. And number two, anybody who does vintage audio restoration work wants things to be as original and factory as possible. And I'm sorry, when this unit was built in the 1970s, early 1980s, there was no such thing as LED lighting. Okay, so that's the reality of that. And we also cleaned up the faceplate. And as you know, the gyro touch wheel was giving us all kinds of problems. This is a real, let me swing the light around here. This is a real signature part of the Marantz units that you turn this wheel and it runs smoothly through the various AM and FM dials. Well, this one was very scratchy because it was knocked out of alignment and it also needed some lubrication. And if you listen now, you don't hear anything at all on that. Okay, so I encourage you, if you haven't seen it, to go back and watch the two-part restoration process. Now, as I mentioned, this unit is, well, it's moving out tomorrow to a new home. I'm going to miss this unit tremendously, mainly because I am just always super impressed that when it comes to Marantz build quality, you get so much in a small package that it's no wonder that so many people never felt the need to step up to larger units. Well, there it is, the very beautiful doll face. I was very lucky to have a unit that is in really great shape without a lot of scratches. The silk screening is all there, all the letters are on, and the functionality is awesome. This can run a tape on the tape input on the back. It can also run a phono input and an auxiliary input that we're going to use to listen to a tune from Bensound. And I'm grateful for Bensound for the use of the music. And of course, you'll see an attribution in the description box. We're going to do a little bit of listening here. We're going to start on the, as we usually do, outside here in the shop, and we're going to end up on the wall of sound. I'm going to really miss this 2015, as I mentioned. It's a unit that I kind of feel like I'd like to have on my shelf, but the problem is, in Rosie's world, you can't have everything. So it's time for this one to move on to somebody that's going to really enjoy it and get a lot of use out of it. Very good friend of mine, so I'm very happy to see it go to a good home. Hey, let's do some listening. You know, if you're an audiophile, you want to use the best tunes, you want to grab the most popular tunes, you want to run them through the systems, but really at the end of the day, my feeling was you do all the work of restoration and things like that. And for the 2 minutes that you're using a pop tune or a copyright protected tune, you know, they're getting all the benefit if you monetize. Not that monetization is everything in the world, but I just feel like if you do a lot of work and you do a restoration job, well, maybe you want a little bit of a payoff over time that people can enjoy the restoration and also get the listening experience. Well, I used to be confounded, very, well, aggravated in the old days because YouTube's music library, well, it sucked. Okay, I'm just going to put it out there. It was not a very good library. Well, I'm happy to say because of composers like Chris Zabriskie and people like Bensound that come on and Audionautics and McLeod and a few other ones, that the quality of music that's available on YouTube that you can monetize in your projects has improved greatly. And that makes me very happy because, well, it might help put a few dollars in my pocket over time to defray the cost of some very expensive equipment that I acquire here and use in the restoration process, not to mention parts and things like that. So that's the reason why you'll see now that we're using a commercially available piece as long as it's attributed, and I hope you enjoy it. It's called Country Boy. It has a really great beat to it, and I tell you, put your stereo headphones on or your earbuds, plug them in now, because I want you to do some really close listening, because this Marantz 2015 has a very wide frequency response, which means if you hear a little bit of plinking on the banjo, yeah, on a lot of systems you wouldn't be able to hear that. If you hear other little bit of plinking on Jew's harps and other small instruments that don't usually get a lot of ear time, you're going to be able to hear them on this unit. Be a good listener, listening to it, pick out all the instruments that you can. This is all synthesized music, but it doesn't mean the sound is not there for the instrumentation, and it makes this a really nice listen. Well, as I said before, we'll start inside and we'll end up on the wall of sound. I'm going to record this on the Zoom H1 stereo recorder, and then I'll be syncing that in later with the video of it. So I really hope that you enjoy the experience. Okay, let's get to it.